After witnessing his sister's suicide, Kakeru lives the remainder of his childhood in an orphanage, where he meets a young girl named Yuka who becomes his first friend. Yuka helps Kakeru open up to the world again, and they attend high school at Rainbow High, together along with two new friends, the slightly perverted Tadashi and the hot-headed Kaori, who keeps Tadashi under control. The ordinary days they have come to expect are overturned when they are thrown into an alternate world which they call Red Night due to the sky turning blood red and the moon turning black. In it, everyone has vanished and is being hunted by terrifying creatures who just want to kill them. However, as quick as it appeared, the Red Night mysteriously ends. Both are left unsure if their experience was simply their imagination. As they walk to school together, Kakeru thinks about Yuka's continuous caring for him and promises to keep her safe if the Red Night ever happens again. Later that same day, a new student named Shiori transfers into their class after having moved to Japan from Italy. As the other students keep asking her questions, she announces that she has no interest in them and walks towards Yuka and Kakeru instead. The moment, Yuka makes eye contact. However, she faints and is carried to the infirmary by Kakeru. The doctor questions Yuka about his covered right eye after he leaves, to which Yuka explains that Kakeru can't see through that eye and they are both different colored, so he wears an eye patch. After school, the duo go to the mall, where they are watched over by a strange girl resembling Kakeru's sister, who is in turn watched over by Shiori. Later, while they just having fun, Kakeru and Yuka are thrown back into the Red Night dimension again. The moment they were surrounded by evil creatures, a sword suddenly dropped in front of them and burst into an electrical shock that killed the evil creatures. They meet a young woman named Nasuzu, a senior at Rainbow High, who saves them from a horde of the evil creatures. As they run away, the two question Mizuzu about this world, which she believes to be another dimension created by someone so that it reflects the same scenery, but running on different space-time. Mizuzu asks them if they possess any special powers like herself, and the answer is no. The trio then try to make their way to the crystal towers in the center of the city, which according to Mizuzu are full of powerful energy for a chance of escape. However, an odd insect-like woman appears before them and declares that they cannot pass. At that, the woman and Mizuzu begin to duel. Instead of fighting to win, Mizuzu, Yuka, and Kakeru are successful in their attempt to flee to the crystal towers, where they stumble upon a young maiden trapped within a crystal. She introduces herself as Lisette, and Mizuzu believes her to be an enemy who created this world. The trio are attacked by some much stronger creature, earning them the name of Black Knight due to their blackish appearance, but once again find themselves returned to the normal world. The three of them head to a cafe to calm themselves, where Mizuzu explains that she has seen other people in the Red Night, one boy and two girls, and all are students at Rainbow High. Mizuzu asks Kakeru to take off his eye patch, revealing a golden right eye, and tests Yuka if she can feel any electric charges she released, which Yuka does not. While walking home, Kakeru espies his older sister, but she turns out to be Shiori instead. Then Kakeru goes to the cafe, where he works part-time to request a leave, only to meet another part-timer there, a cheerful young girl who is a freshman at Rainbow High named Yukiko. Kakeru notices her wrist with fresh cut, but with her back turned to them, the fresh cut on her wrist mysteriously disappears. The next day, at the library, Yuka and Kakeru are trying to search up on the Red Night, and as Kakeru takes a book titled The Maiden of Crystal Palace, catches sight of his sister's eye staring right back at him, with a note left on the ground that tells him he has awakened the devil. Kakeru then begins to scream in pain as his right eye begins to hurt. Kakeru, Mizuzu, and Yuka find out that the moon has turned black, this time in the real world. With such a terrible sign, Mizuzu tells them that if they are ever sent into the Red Night again, the school will be their meeting place. Kakeru, wishing to protect Yuka, asks Mizuzu if she will teach him how to use a sword. Mizuzu refuses, but Kakeru is determined to learn so he can protect Yuka the next time if they are taken to the Red Night. Meanwhile, a lonely and worried Yuka encounters Yukiko, who cheers her up with her lively smile. Yuka also notices that Yukiko is interested in the school delinquent, Tajima. After school, Kakeru trains alone on the field using a baseball bat, closely watched over by Shiori and Yuka. After watching him train, Mizuzu takes him and Yuka back to her home, where she shows them her true abilities, which comes in 5 different sword forms that are kept sealed on her nails, the answer to why she wears gloves. It was also initially under the agreement that only one sword could belong to one person, but Mizuzu won against all 5 of the swords, causing her family to seek her life, prompting her to move to this part of Japan. Then Mizuzu begins Kakeru's training. She later explains to Yuka that she cut down her own father to get the last sword. As Kakeru laments with frustration, the Red Knight appears again, and the stronger Black Knights are sent to dispose of them, the fragments. Mizuzu sent them running, but a Black Knight chased after them. Despite hiding in a car, they were discovered and began demolishing the car. As a Black Knight is about to crush Yuka and Kakeru, chains appear out of nowhere and frighten the Black Knight to escape. Meanwhile, as Misuzu faces difficulty defeating Gula, one of the Black Knights, but thanks to a girl stabbing him, Misuzu is able to finish him off, causing one of the crystal towers in the center of the Red Knight to disappear. Trapped under the broken car with an unconscious Yuka, Kakeru has a faint vision of his older sister quietly gazing down at him. Tajima and Yukiko are revealed to be two of the few in the Red Knight, with Tajima having the ability to manipulate fire. Yukiko happily introduces Yuka, Kakeru, and Misuzu to Tajima, calling him Mr. Hero of Justice after he saved her from a monster. Kakeru is determined to find his power after Tajima teases him, but cannot seem to awaken it. As he trains, he sees Misuzu leaping towards Yuka and he jumps in front of her to take the blow only to find everyone staring at him. Misuzu, although her face betrays no emotion, was in truth really thinking of pointing her sword at Yuka to test his resolve, but didn't do it in the end. The next day at school, they are taken once more to the Red Knight and are attacked by two of the Black Knights named Ira and Nvidia. Misuzu tries to fight and hold back Ira but fails to break the standoff. She is saved by Yukiko, who enters the fight very nearly delivering a death blow to Misuzu's opponent when she is impaled from behind by Nvidia. Just as the Black Knights are assured of victory, Tajima ignites them and the Red Knight ends once again. Yukiko staggers up and puts on her glasses again, turning into the cheerful and outgoing freshman they know so well. She also reveals her regeneration skills by healing the large wound in her stomach. After a hug from Yuka, Yukiko tells them that she was born in the country of Transylvania, where there were constant massacres, also where she found her abilities. Yukiko then thanks them for accepting her for who she is, bloody personality and regeneration skills and all. Yuka faints again at school, and the school doctor, Siko, concludes that it is anemia. She also reveals to them that she is Tajima's legal guardian after discovering him living on the streets as a child. After the visit to the infirmary, Kakeru and Yuka are firstly introduced to the mute Kukuri, shocking Yuka and Kakeru especially. Meanwhile, Tajima gets into a motorcycle accident to find that there is a barrier in the middle of the city that only he cannot pass through. Kakeru resumes his sword training with Mizuzu at school, soon after which the Red Knight falls. During the Red Knight, Misuzu is immediately engaged by Nvidia, and Yuka and Kakeru are again forced to escape. While running away, they are met by Ira, who blocks their way out of the school grounds. He at first overwhelms Kakeru, but eventually Kakeru's powers awaken in a battle protecting Yuka, allowing him to detect his movements before he executes them, and Kakeru successfully defeats his opponent. Despite his victory, Kakeru falls to the ground violently convulsing with pain. Kakeru is stuck in a coma racked with pain and his past memories. His friends are by his side, worried for his state of health. Misuzu attempts a ritual to heal him and free Kakeru of his suffering. His right eye, or known as the Eye of Eon, activates and past and present meet in a meeting of the minds. The next morning, Kakeru awakens healed to a weakened Misuzu who is passed out in his lap. Yuka, who comes to check up on him, witnesses only this, completely misinterpreting what she had seen. The others gather for breakfast. A short enjoyable piece is broken when Misuzu has a dizzy spell which Kakeru responded to with concern, upsetting Yuka and causing her to blindly flee. Kakeru finally catches up with Yuka on the school rooftop and assures her that Misuzu and he are only friends. Yuka confesses her feelings for him, wanting a kiss to legitimize their relationship. Kakeru refuses, making Yuka run away again. As Kakeru once again tries to follow, the Red Knight falls. A standoff ensues between their team of dubbed Fragments and the Black Knights. As the battle begins, Misuzu readies herself for a fight and Yukiko starts to engage in battle, when Kukuri reveals her powers and slaughters all the nightmare blobs and a Black Knight named Scholastica in the process. After everyone regroups, Tajima reveals that he has found Yuka's torn backpack. Kakeru, fearing the worst, looks for Yuka. With no one to protect her now, Yuka is desperately trying to run and forget her fears about Kakeru and Misuzu. The others search in vain for Yuka, fearing the worst, and split up to find her. Kakeru and Tajima search in the school while the girls search the city. Meanwhile, Lisette awakens to find herself alone and tests the limits of the crystal barrier. Yukiko manages to find Yuka at a temple, talking to herself about Kakeru. Aravisha, the chief Black Knight, notices Lisette's attempted escape and leaves the matter of the fragments to the other Black Knights. Yukiko tries to cheer up Yuka as she laments both her lack of power and her belief that Kakeru is becoming distanced from her. Yukiko advises that it may be for the best, revealing her own bloody past. The boys continue to search as Scholastica, wounded and dazed, disintegrates before their eyes. Misuzu meets with them as Invidia appears, wanting revenge for defacing her face and body. Kakeru activates the Eye of Eon to fight Invidia, and manages to land a severe blow before the pain begins to cripple him. Superbia and Misuzu duel as the Black Knight remarks about Misuzu's Onmyoji heritage. Misuzu becomes suspicious of Superbia's knowledge. Tajima continues his battle with Invidia, but both reach their limits. Yukiko and Kukuri arrive on the scene and attack Invidia. A cyclone then traps them with Invidia, and she reveals her explosive blood. Yuka suddenly appears and cries for Kakeru, activating her hidden power. Invidia's power, Misuzu's sword, and Kukuri's chains all disappear. When Yukiko realizes Invidia has been neutralized, she stabs her in the head. Misuzu explains that Yuka has the dangerous power of nullification, the ability to prevent the use of enemy or friend's powers. Then Yuka faints because she used her powers too much. Yuka awakens the next morning to see Kakeru dozing on a chair beside her bed. He inquires if she is alright and Yuka assures him and declares she wishes to protect him. Downstairs in the living room, Misuzu and Tajima discuss Yuka's power, the Red Knight, and the reason they are chased by the Black Knights. Kakeru confronts Kukuri about the notebook and asks her to leave Yuka alone. After Tajima leaves to in search of Yukiko, Misuzu checks the Oni barrier around her house, which shows hairline cracks. Meanwhile, Yukiko tells Tajima about how much everyone means to her and how much loss she has suffered as Kakeru follows Misuzu to her dojo, where Misuzu shows him the mark branded into her shoulder. She then cuts herself and offers Kakeru the power of the Kusakebe by drinking her blood. Yuka witnesses this intimate moment and then faints. Tajima has made his way back to school, but is caught by Siko for being late. After scolding him, she wants him to meet her after school to go out to eat. In class, Shiori gets a love letter, which she destroys, then asks to go to the nurse's office. A raven goes to attack Shiori, but she reveals magical abilities by destroying the bird, remarking to herself that she can't stay out of it any longer. Yuka wakes from her blackout as Kakeru and Misuzu duel. Kakeru finds his movements light and agile. He uses the eye and predicts Misuzu's next move, hitting her hard and wounding her. Yuka walks in and offers Misuzu a hanky for her cut, then suddenly leans forward and licks her blood, exclaiming, "She's just like Kakeru." Yukiko found Tajima at school, and they share a very warm moment. Kukuri and Misuzu are walking to school. Misuzu comforts Kukuri about Kakeru not trusting her. Back at the house, Yuka and Kakeru start to do some chores around the house when they hear a noise. Kakeru goes to check it out and finds Shiori, who blasts him with magic, then tells him cryptically, "You are the one who awakened the demon." Tajima and Yukiko go to meet Siko and found her strung up magically, dead with Superbia seated beside her. After seeing Siko strung up by Superbia, Tajima goes into a fit of rage, exactly what his parents had feared, and so left him on the streets. Meanwhile, Shiori informs Kakeru that only he can stop the demon. Things start to stir up when Tajima is revealed to be fighting a Superbia clone, and at the same time Misuzu is fighting the real Superbia. Kakeru and Kukuri come to aid Misuzu, and Superbia retreats. Misuzu realizes that her and Superbia's power are far too great a distance in strength. Yukiko confronts the group as they are discussing the Black Knights, covered in blood, shaking with tears, and revealed that she has killed Tajima. Shiori comes and tells Kakeru and Misuzu everything about the Red Knight and about the Black Knights, revealing herself to be a young magician and librarian of a secret magical organization called the Index. In her explanation, she reveals some important truths, starting with the girl in the crystal, Lisette. Lisette is actually the mirror image of a wicked witch named Lelot, who seeks to destroy the world to fulfill her lover, a man named Verarts. 64 years prior, Lelot was sealed away by Index using a forbidden spell. However, by doing so, the various members that accomplished it turned into hideous creatures, who are now called the Black Knights, who guard Lelot's seal. While Lelot remains trapped due to her immortality, her soul could only be separated, so that is what the Black Knights did. This makes the Black Knights hunt them for their souls. When the Red Knight appears, and the group is immediately engaged in battle. Meanwhile, Yukiko, who is grieving for Tajima, now seeks vengeance against the Black Knights and goes alone to fight them. Yuka tries to protect Kakeru, but faints again, and Kakeru locks her in a classroom to keep her safe and joins the others to search for Yukiko. Meanwhile, Yukiko loses to Misao, who gruesomely kills Yukiko and takes her fragment of Lelot's soul, which will prevent Yukiko from regenerating. When Kakeru, Misuzu, and Shiori arrive, they find Yukiko's dead body there, but Yuka suddenly appears and takes Yukiko's fragment from Misao and throwing it towards the red crystal. The seal is destroyed and Lisette, now Lelot, awakens. Lelot awakens and proceeds to kill Yuka and absorb her fragment. Kakeru envisions the flashback and tries to reflect the power, but fails. Now that Yuka and Yukiko's fragments have been absorbed, Lelot gains her dark powers again. Avarisha, in order to protect the remaining fragments, teleport Misuzu and Kakeru out of the Red Knight, while Shiori stays behind to fight Lelot alongside Misao and Avarisha in his dragon form. Meanwhile, Kakeru and Misuzu try to find out if Yuka is still alive and tries to find their way back into the Red Knight. As Shiori is about to be absorbed and killed by Lelot, Kukuri appears and transforms into Abraxas, the spirit inhabiting her body, and Misao tries to hold Lelot still while Avarisha fires a blast at them. In Yuka's world, as the Black Moon is coming closer, Kakeru and Misuzu discuss what they should do if the others fail and proceed to do a ritual to power up Kakeru's abilities. A crack that leads them to the Red Knight opens, and Misao appears behind them and tells them that her love, Avarisha, died, Abraxas was killed, and Shiori committed suicide. She told them indirectly that this too might happen to Misuzu. After Misao dies, Yuka comes out. As Kakeru walks towards her, he is stabbed by Lelot using Yuka's body and has his body and the Eye of Aeon absorbed into her. She also absorbs Misuzu. Lelot remembers her discussion with Verard about destroying the world. It seems that everyone is dead. Then, Yuka proceeds to say, and the two of them lived happily ever after. Kakeru disagrees on this ending. As it turns out, all of the events were just Kakeru's vision of what would happen if he were to protect Yuka from Lelot's attack. Determined to preventing those events from happening, Kakeru decides to kill himself to prevent Lelot from taking his eye. After stabbing himself, he has a flashback and remembers all of his childhood memories, particularly how Yuka has always looked out for him. To his surprise, he wakes up in the infirmary. Misuzu explains that is he alive because Yuka nullified the sword when he stabbed himself, and that Lelot couldn't fight on due to Yuka's ability also nullifying her powers. Shiori appears and introduces Kakeru to Abraxas, the spirit that his sister Kukuri hosted within her body. She further explains how Kukuri is still alive, and how Abraxas killed Kakeru in another world among other things. The group feels the world shift and watches Yuka is absorbed by the bed. The group races to the roof to find that the Black Moon is near, and Lelot that has sealed Yuka in a crystal so that she is unable to use her nullification power. Kakeru demands Yuka's return and agrees to Lelot's demand that he give himself up. Shiori and Abraxas attack Lelot, but fail. The two remaining Black Knights arrive to give assistance. Superbia shields Kakeru, and Avarisha engages Lelot, stalling her for a short time. Abraxas uses the time gained by Avarisha to give Shiori's fragment to Kakeru, and Superbia informs him that with the Eye of Aeon and Shiori's fragment, which has the ability to travel through space-time, he may be able to seal Lelot in a dimensional rift. Misuzu draws the forbidden Daijikiri Yasutsuna sword to shield Kakeru. While Kakeru is facing off with Lelot, the voice of Velad, the former bearer of the Eye of Aeon, appears in Lelot's mind, stating that it is foolish to destroy the world. Lelot, however, no longer cares about destroying the world to avenge Velad, but instead determined to obtain the Eye of Aeon, a fragment of the Emerald Tablet, for herself. Together, Misuzu and Misao counter the power Lelot is releasing, but she disappears. Kakeru, using the Eye of Aeon, saw where Lelot was going to reappear and surprises her when he uses Shiori's fragment to seal her away. Lelot tries to run away but is prevented by Avarisha, and the two of them are drawn into the dimensional rift contained in the crystal fragment. As a result of Lelot's disappearance, Yuka is freed and the Red Knight starts to collapse. Misao uses what appears to be the last of her energy to return Kakeru, Yuka and Misuzu to the real world, a world of peace. In this world, only Kakeru, Yuka, and Misuzu are aware of the events of the Red Knight. Yukiko and Tajima along with Seiko are alive, but have forgotten about the Red Knight and that they knew Kakeru and the others. The story ends with Misuzu asking Kakeru and Yuka if they want to accompany her to Iona's. As Kakeru looks up in the sky with his Eye of Aeon, he sees that the Black Moon still exists. This is the end of the video, so please watching all of my anime recap series. Thanks for watching.